Honest as Hell, a Men of Metal podcast. I'm your host, Kit Brooks. Welcome back to the show. So, this week started something that I've known a path we were going to take, a path I knew we were going to take from the first moment I had the thought of this show. And that is the interview series. So, the thing that kept it from starting sooner than this was I wanted to work out as many glitches as I could on my end. That way, I'm not wasting the interviewees' time or anyone else's for that matter. And so I appreciate all of you who have listened from the beginning up to this point along the way of me working out the kinks. Well, I was finally feeling confident. I was like, okay, we're ready to go. Start bringing on the interviews, and there's still things I want to polish up and make more professional on this, but I'm more about getting the ball rolling and figuring it out as we go, as you all know. And I wanted to get the rhythm going, get the momentum going so we can start getting into the real value of where I want this to go. And this week was very exciting, very special moment because it was going to kick off the interviews. And from the moment I knew I was going to do interviews or do a show, I knew of a couple of guys right off the top of my head that I wanted on here. And one of the first, actually the first name that popped in my head was Dan Ontrop, for those of you who maybe just knowing through Facebook. The reason why I wanted Dano was, or is, whatever, because he will be back. If you're ever at the expo on Education Day, he is doing Hell Education, how to keep your family surviving and thriving while you're on the road. And then also how you can capitalize the most on the road and not get burnt out from the road in general, but also burn out if you have a family and the stress of being away from home and trying to balance both. And he came on first because planting that seed and starting to build on that foundation, I believe, is the most important thing we can do. Because if your home life is not dialed in, quite frankly, it doesn't matter. You can't make enough on the road. You can't excel enough in this business to make up for a shaky foundation at home. And I speak from experience very much on that one. So that's why I wanted to bring in Dano. He has struggled and fought and scraped to make it in this industry. And then as he started making it, things at home started suffering. And so he went to work on fixing it there and doing what he needed to do. And now the career he's had and his family life are something to really be in just complete admiration about. It's something I wish for everybody. And the best way to find out how to get it is to learn from those who have it. And I don't know anyone who is doing better in the balance of building a successful career in this industry and also having a successful working relationship and family life. I don't know anyone who's doing it better than Dan. So that's why I was bringing him on this week. Now, thought I had all the kinks worked out, but as they say, if you want to hear God laugh, tell him your plans. And so when Dano came on, he lives in the mountains of Tennessee, and internet went out partway through the show. And so there was a glitch. He came back on and we finished. But with all that, kind of lost the place where we're going, or I did. It's my job to keep it. And so it went a little longer than I was planning because I didn't want to hold him up any longer. Because also, the morning of our scheduled interview, he found out his hometown got hit and he needed to go take care of some of those accounts that you just can't turn your back on or put on hold, regardless of whether they've got 2 cars or 200. So an hour or so after he got off the call with me and being there for all of us, he was hitting the road. And that, for those of you who know, that's the worst day of the year. Typically, is the day you have to say goodbye to your family. It's a rough one. Just even thinking about it again right now, I'm getting emotional. It's a tough one. And so knowing what that's like, knowing that's what he was getting ready to go do, knowing how Dan loves his role as husband and father, what that means to him, I know the pain that is. And so I offered for him to not even do the show. But those of you who know would not be surprised that because you know the type of man Dano is. He's like, no, I've got it all lined up. Don't worry, let's go. And so we rolled right into it. I tossed out what I originally wanted to do, and we're just going to kind of do in segments because Dano will be back on probably multiple times. He is a wealth of knowledge and wisdom and experience. Like I say, from the business end to the family or non-business end, and everything in between. And he loves this industry, loves helping guys really kick butt in the industry. Um, so that's why I was here, and so he will be back around. But to keep this under an hour, so that YouTube learned if it's under an hour, YouTube will translate it in subtitles or put the subtitles in any translation needed. So for our international viewers, I just learned that recently, thanks to them. So I'm going to, where it drops off and he disappears, I'm going to make that part one, and then part two, I will launch them both right after this, actually, and put them both out there. But that way, I know it stays under that hour mark for both, so you can get the translation for those of you who are using that platform. And yeah, I guess that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover on there. And on the interview, just went right into it because, like I say, I found out as we were getting on the call that he was going to be hitting the road. So I didn't want to waste his time with any intro or anything. So we just go right into it. And that's exactly how we're going to start right after this. So without further ado, this is definitely my favorite interview so far and best one yet, no matter how much I scrambled it or fumbled it. So anyway, my pleasure to introduce those of you who don't know him or have yet to have the pleasure to meet him, Dan Ontrop. Dude, awesome to have you here. I've been planning on getting this to the interview stage for since before it kicked it off, even. And it was one of the first thoughts around this show. And there's been so many glitches that I had to work out before I was going to get somebody to come on. Glitches I need to work out on my end. It's like, fine, yeah, that took a little longer than I planned, but it's like finally got it running smooth enough. And yeah, you're the first of the
Oh, wow.
interviews. Yeah, I've got people lined up, but I wanted to grab you because, yeah, like I shared with you a little bit at the expo, it's like, man, if people had an idea half as much of the value as you were given in your um, uh, seminars you did there that I came to, it's like it would have been standing room only, backed out of the hallway. It's like, unfortunately, too many guys don't recognize the true value in that until it's too late, and or they're well on their way down a slide the wrong way. Uh, I've always had a ton of respect for you in the business from the first time we met. It was just who you are and what type of person you are. Just always was pretty obvious to me. And then when I uh, saw you in that class, I was like, man, if I'd have had this 15, 20 years ago, it would have changed the game. So yeah, I've got questions that I want to go through with everybody else, and I didn't send them to you because I was like, with this one, this is a different kind of conversation, um, because I really want to hopefully stress that point because part of this show is sharing my own journey, the highs, the lows, the basement of the lows, and all of that, trying to prevent other guys from experiencing the same. And yeah, a lot of what you focus on, it's like you've put in the research time and the development. It's just like, man, he figured it out, and I wasn't able to piece it together the same. It took me way longer, and it's like and I've seen so many other people lose their family over the road life or all this, and because they're coming in for the glitz and glam, right? All
Yeah.
the highlights that everybody hears about. So, um, but real quick, I'll let's just give a like the elevator pitch of how you got in the business, how long you've been in it.
Yeah. So I appreciate you having me on, Kip. Like I said, I think the first time we kind of ran into each other was at least a decade ago or
Yeah.
longer. Never worked together. I really don't work with a whole lot of guys. I got a pretty tight network. Some of that's by design, some of that's just the way the seasons work. But I got into PDR kind of accidentally. I shouldn't say accidentally, but I was I I got trained as a BMW mechanic when I came out of high school. I grew up on a large hog farm in Ohio, Western Ohio, and grew up on a farm, and then went to a VOTEC program in high school for automotive. Worked at a small shop in our 10,000 person county seat town, which was the biggest city in the county, and then moved to Wyoming. Um, got recruited by BMW after I finished that program, and then moved to Texas, and then did that for 8 years. And my goal, I'm not a huge goal guy. I'm more of a vision guy, I guess you would say. But so I guess my goal was to get out of the dealership lifestyle by the time I was 30. And the reason I wanted to do that is because I just knew I would never have enough vacation to satisfy kind of my wants and my goals and things like that. And it was just a really demanding job. And I liked it. I was gifted at it, and made a bunch of money at a really young age, and had a lot of fun, met a lot of great people. But I wanted it to not be forever. So I was struggling to find something to, for one, supplement that income, because we had a young family. My wife and I were celebrating our 20th anniversary this year, but back then
Nice.
we were struggling, like every American struggles when they're young, and just had to figure out a way to be able to take that leap of the next step of whatever that was. And I say accidentally got into it because I was working at a BMW dealership in Dayton, Ohio, which I grew up like an hour north of there, and I was commuting back and forth every day. And there was a PDR guy that serviced the dealership, door dings, kind of whatever. And there were a couple of BMWs that had hail damage on them that he was going to fix at the facility. So I had to detrim everything. So I was his R&I guy without knowing I was his R&I guy. So I just got the ticket, did everything that said to do on the ticket, and tore this car apart and put it all back together when he was done. And I was paid flat rate. So I think most guys know what it is, but basically you're incentivized to get it done faster. You're
Yeah.
racing the clock. So I think I did like almost 30 hours of R&I, and it probably took me 4 or 5 hours, just because I was really efficient at it. I knew BMWs, and they paid really good book time for
Right.
that sort of stuff. And I flagged the back of the RO for my time, and he had his invoice stapled to it. And I saw what he charged to fix those two hail cars in less than 2 days, and then what my additional money was on it. I was just able to do the math and think, wow, if I could learn how to do that, and I already know how to do all the other stuff, and I've been in the car industry now for a decade, I feel like that could be really a really winning combination. So basically, that not like legitimately that night, I got home and I started researching paintless dent repair. And for the next 6 months, I'm a big researcher. Probably not a super big surprise to you, but but I'm very detail oriented, and I got to work and start researching everything. And about 6 months later, I got enough of a runway, and I identified who I wanted to get trained by, and I took that jump, kind of like in the one class, the RV video where it's titled "Jump." Like I was ready to jump. I didn't know what that was going to look like, but I was confident, and you know, I was I trusted that the Lord would provide whatever that was, so that's how I got into it. And that was in 2010. I got trained, and I did basically door dings for a year and a half, and then I went full time hail, and I can kind of tell that story. But yeah, so that was kind of my progression into the industry.
Nice. And you said that was in Texas or back in no, that was Dayton still.
Dayton, yeah. So I was in Dayton. I started a PDR company. So I got trained by Mike Toledo out in California. So I went in, put my 2 weeks in at the dealership. 2 weeks later, I was on a plane out to San Diego, trained with Mike one on one for a month, 30 days of training. I got trained on a line board.
Oh,
And then, yeah, which is really, it sucked transitioning when I did, but it's still beneficial to this day because, instead of putting a light up on a dent that's on a roof 10 feet away, I can use the reflection off of the ceiling or
yeah.
something corrugated or whatever. Um, but yeah, I got trained on a line board. And then after that, I went home and I started my own business, Dano Dents. And I got my teeth kicked in, dude. I mean, kicked in. I severely underestimated the market. Like I said, where I was living, the county had 40,000 people in it. It's very rural. There's not an overpass in the whole county. It's flat.
Wow.
It's farmland. There's money there, but it wasn't something that the PDR model worked well in. And I just thought that if I learned how to fix dents better than everyone else, that people would want to hire me. And that was not the case. All the dealerships had, local technicians that did what they were paid to do, or they did what they wanted to do and got paid whatever they could, type of thing. But it wasn't quality work. It was the normal thing that I didn't know was normal back then.
Yeah.
I thought everything was fixed to perfection. And I got a crash course in that. But yeah, so did that, got my teeth kicked in to the point that I grossed $5,000 my first year of Dano Dents. I probably netted about 15,000 in the red, I'm going to guess, after maybe 20,000 after tools and training. And it was actually more than that. I'd have to pull up QuickBooks, but yeah, I was severely in the red
Yeah.
after 1 year. And to the point that, I didn't want to give up, but it was trending that way. I was working on my dad's farm, $10 an hour cash, doing whatever I could there, bush hogging, hay, pounding fence posts, working livestock, doing whatever I could to keep food on the table. My wife was a speech therapist at a school system, so she was making roughly 30 some $1,000s. Yeah, when I say we were broke, we were broke. I had a side hustle in the winter that I called Dano Snow. I put flyers in all my neighbors' mailboxes, for $10 to $20, depending on the size of their driveway. I would snow blow it out. I put in for part-time job at a mechanic shop, single bay mechanic shop, and wouldn't hire me because I was overqualified. I tried to stuff papers in the morning, for minimum wage, and the local newspaper company wouldn't hire me because they said I would just leave. I was hustling, man.
Yeah.
I was doing everything I could to keep the lights on and keep the marriage together, and not fail. Because I don't like to fail. Nobody likes to fail. But it was tough, so.
Yeah, especially failure is never fun. Even once you get to the place in life where it's like, man, it's just another step on the road to success. There are certain times where it really hurts. And no matter how many times you tell yourself, like, it's
Yeah.
just part of the process. This too shall pass. God got it. It's like, man, there's sometimes where it just doesn't numb that pain enough. And Yeah, that I relate to that so much. I was donating plasma. I was painting houses for whatever I could get.
Yeah.
And just being luckily, I knew somebody who was he was on up in age and his health had taken a beating over the years. And I was like, man, just let me be your hands on jobs that are more of a struggle for you than they're worth. And he was kind and generous enough to do that. And he's like, all right, but you're also going to do the stuff that I just absolutely don't want to do. And I was like,
Yeah.
whatever it is, I'll dig ditches, man. I'll clean sewage lines. It's like, I got to
That's it,
survive.
man.
And
And yeah, I can call it hustle, but really what it is desperation. I was
yeah,
desperate. And but I was willing to do whatever it took. And I was in it for the long run. I was committed. And, basically 1 year after training, I was rewarded. I was rewarded for patience. I was rewarded for, just for having faith and things like that. And the only account that I serviced on a regular basis, which I would probably get about $200 a week out of, maybe 400 on a good week. That's the only account I had that I would go to every week. Received a hailstorm, and the whole town got
it's,
blanketed with hail. And Kip, when I tell you it was manna from heaven, that's what it felt like. It was, I was at the lowest of lows, and I might tear up telling this story, but um, I was going nowhere, man. I was going backwards. I wasn't going nowhere. I was going backwards, and I was self-medicating. I was drinking more. All the things like you said. You start that slide, and it's hard to stop. And not only hard to stop, you gain momentum the further you get down that
yeah.
slide,
And the slide gets
and
slipperier.
it's slippery, man. And it hailed on that account, and I remember watching the news at night in tears, just weeping, and yeah, that's what
Bro, I appreciate
that's
you.
what got me through it.
I
Yeah.
appreciate you going there and sharing that. Um, yeah, I remember actually, one of the questions I like to ask is just when did you realize, like, when did you feel like, oh, I made it, or like this is gonna work, like, that
May
moment?
25th, 2011. May 25th, 2011 was the day that storm happened. And I didn't know I made it then, but I knew that was the break I needed to make it.
Yeah,
And I was not going to
yeah,
squander it. That was my chance. So, yeah,
yeah,
I can tell you that date. I can damn near tell you the time. But May 25th, 2011 was that day.
yeah. There's a Ford dealership about 45 minutes from here, and I remember there was a guy there gave me a shot, and when I had no business getting a shot, just on my tools alone, and he but he had some hail damage. He gave me a shot. He's like, man, I like being on the golf course by 3 o'clock. So if you'll take this hail off my plate, yeah, absolutely. But if you mess up, you're gone. And luckily, it
Mhm.
was um, just on the line where I could pretty much fix it all. I didn't even have well tails though, so we had to tag a lot of cars. Um, there was very few cars actually hit. It's just he had such a big area because he'd been around for so long, and he
Yeah.
had contacts that it worked for me, and I'd been broke long enough. But even that, I was like, okay, this is a little bit of hail damage and it doesn't happen here. And then as it started dwindling down, he's like, I'll start giving you some of my route work. If he's like, because I don't like doing wholesale stuff, and he had like 6 guys working for him. He said, but they can't get to everything. So if you'll stay around, I'll still keep giving you the health stragglers, but I'll give you some route work. And to me, that was kind of real world because it's like, I know hailstorms, good, bad, ugly,
Yeah.
dry years, all that. And I remember sitting under this tree, and there's a church right here, and a Hardee's next to it, and the dealership's right over here. And I'm in this little overflow lot between all three businesses or all three buildings. And I just remember it was almost 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was heading home for the day, and I'd made $300, and my cut after his, and I started the day at like 9, and it was no hail damage. It was all door ding stuff, and I got I cried. I was like, finally, okay, I got this. I like this isn't
Mhm.
going to pay my past due penalties on anything. But if I did this today, I can do it every single day and I can make it. And as long as I can make this, my family can survive. And yeah, to this day, I get cold chills thinking about that. I was more excited and proud of that moment than fast forward the following year when I'm making what I made that month in a day or a week,
Yeah.
or whatever, just because it was like finally that release, right? Just man, sticking it out when everybody told me I was stupid, told me I was crazy, and I should go back to my job at a body shop and all that.
Yeah.
It was like, man, and to this day, I get goosebumps every time I think of it. We drove by that dealership just yesterday. We were looking at some potential investment properties down there. Every time we drive by it, like I slow down and just look, and that's my tree. Man. Like, if they ever sold that property, it's like I want that tree, but it's too big to move. But it's like I want that in my
Yeah.
yard. Like that's my spot. I fixed so many cars under that tree. But anyway, so then after you did transition and hell, like the talks really wanted to get to because I know you big family guy and. Um, so many of us, myself included, I got so obsessed once because then that year was '08, and it's like, man, I finally made it. And then all of a sudden, the '08 crash happened. Most of my accounts actually closed, and then CarMax kicked out their 9 in-house guys. Didn't want to laid some guys off, and all of a sudden, my market's just flooded with independent guys. And the CarMax guys, the way their pay structure worked, none of them could fix anything over a quarter because it didn't make sense for them to. They made more money on the smaller stuff because one of them actually I became kind of buddies with. And so just undercutting everything. Interior Magic came in and was working deals and hiring those dent guys and like adding on to, if we're already doing the rest of the car, we'll add in dents for $10, And so I was back at it. But I was able to ride off that high just knowing it's like, okay, I got to that point when I didn't think I could. Now I know I can. I just got to find it again and work it out. And I made it through the winter and then a storm hit about 4 hours south of me, and I was pulling into town while it was still dropping, and it was golden, but knocked every door, landed some stuff, and then became so obsessed with never feeling that pain again, trying to provide for the family, thinking I'm doing the right thing, and all I did was work. Work came first. I told myself the story, that oh, I'm doing this for my family. I put my family first. I'm sacrificing all this for my family. I said, no, they were
Yeah.
sacrificing me for this because I was too scared to ever take my foot off the gas. And I know you had a similar situation, but you were able to pump the brakes quicker than I was. Um,
Yeah. 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 And we all like to drive fast, right? So, all gas, no brakes. And that's the entrepreneurial, spirit. That's why we're all self-employed. And that's why we, are willing to kind of put our careers on the line because we believe in ourselves, right? And with that belief comes hard work and dedication and drive and success and all those sort of things. And they're all good, but you know, moderation is the key to everything, right? So they can all turn into a sin or an envy very fast. And my wife has been my biggest cheerleader, my best supporter, the one that's believed in me at the lowest of lows and built me up to get to those highs. And she has always been very fast to be like my mirror, like when you're looking at a mirror and you're really start questioning, your inner self, like I can do that with her. And, she's not going to forever judge me, but she will judge me in that moment and help me get through that and be real about it, truth and grace. And, yeah, early in my career, same thing. I hit that 11 hailstorm. I felt like I hit the lottery because I did hit the lottery. I went from broke, no money to how are we going to survive to holy cow, I'm making thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of dollars. And that transition was hard. I mean, I went from blinds to fog and from never fixing a hail car to fixing hail cars and all that. And that takes a lot of energy. And then you start telling yourself, well, I've done all this, so like this is what I'm owed, this like I put in all this work, so I'm owed this. And that's all a bunch of garbage. But it feels, when you're in the moment, it feels like that. But yeah, I mean, I got to that very quickly where it's like I did this and then I got on a good run, 2011, I got into Hale. And then what benefited me is I never worked for a big company. I never wanted to because I didn't want to sacrifice my family. I didn't want to be a number. I didn't want to have a phone ring and say, you have to be here tomorrow morning. So I just never did it. So I went out and hustled and got my own accounts, did all those things, which I'm so fortunate that I did it that way, because to this day, I've still never worked for quote unquote a dead company, a big company. I just work with local guys and my own stuff. But in order to accomplish that, it takes a lot of energy and
Yeah.
effort. And I was so blinded by the vision that, of success. And it wasn't so much money for me, Kip. It never really has been money for me. It's been execution. And I'm driven by execution. And I know if I execute, the blessings will come from that, whatever that is. And a lot of times it's financial. So I've always been an execution guy, but it got to a point where my wife basically said, like, look, I didn't sign up for this. So what you told me, the reasons that you wanted to get out of the dealership life was for family, was for flexibility, for all these things, and you're veering off that path. And she was that person on my shoulder. She was my blind spot, and she just put her foot down. Very delicately, because she knew this was a passion of mine. And at this point, she was staying home, with our children, and the greatest gift you can give your children are their mother as much as possible. I'm a firm believer of that. But yeah, I was starting to tell myself the lies of, like, I need this to provide for them. I need my wife to drive a new vehicle. I need a bigger house. I need a bigger bank account. All these things that my wife wasn't asking for, my kids weren't asking for. It was my way to justify, what I
Yeah.
wanted. Right? It's all for them, not for me. It was a lie. It was all for me, not for them. I didn't know it necessarily, but it was.
Yeah.
So yeah, she was very quick to point that out and help me right that wrong. And I tell guys all the time, like, you don't have to be married to be successful in the hail business, but you do have to have a strong mentor or accountability partner, because you will have blind spots. We all do,
Yeah.
no
And you
matter how
guys,
well intentioned you are. So,
yeah, and like you said, when you've got it just when it's rolling and it's working, it's like almost no industry works as well as this one when it's on, right? And especially for 90% of us. I love what this industry can do. I've met two-time felons that were trying to turn their life around and then found this, and it was like,
mhm.
man, it was either work at McDonald's or go back to the old life, and I didn't want to do that. And then somebody gave me a chance, and they're doing great, and it's like I love seeing that. I always love what this can do. But when you get in those spots where you've had a hard time and then this kicks on and it's working for you finally after the grind it to, especially guys that have been in it before all the evolutions of tools and technology, it's like, man, you fight so hard to get to that moment that then all of a sudden it kicks on and you just don't want to let it go. And then after a while, like I said, you start believing the story that, like, I did this, I'm owed this. Yeah. And if anybody says anything to you, whether it's one of your mentors in the game or definitely I know plenty of guys that can relate to, oh, my spouse says something and I blew up because it was like they're trying to take that from you. And especially as men and men with a family and everything else, like we're the providers, right? Like we're supposed to do. So it feels like, wait a minute, you're trying to make me be somebody else, not let me do my job I was put on earth to do. All of that like kicks in at a, we rarely recognize it like consciously, but yeah, I commend you for being able to hear that and from your wife and actually hear it, right, and sit with it and have that kind of relationship. Because with Julie, my wife, we have that, and it's like we've got that thing. It's like we might say something that the other one doesn't like, but we know where it's coming from, and it's like, and in those moments, you just lean into love, and it's like because that's what a relationship is for. A big part of it, right, is that reflection point, being able to catch those blind spots and yeah, she's who I go to first for I'm thinking this. What do you think? And she's gonna really get it out of me. Are you doing this for the right reasons? It's like because it sounds like you're doing it for this, and that's not who you are. And I'm like, all right, didn't want to hear that, but yeah, I did want to hear that.
Yeah,
And
for
roll on,
sure.
and that's it's beautiful to have that. It's um, someone you can count on for that true reflection. Because to me, people, especially a lot in this industry, there's people sometimes run across that uh, are telling you what you want to hear because everybody's like, "Hey, buddy, the storm hit and you're," it's like, um, it's funny how much I see the mirror reflection in this and the overlap of like what I hear with like athletes and celebrities is or lottery winners. It's like you don't know who to trust anymore. Like I've had people very close to me take advantage of it. It's like we don't make that kind of money, but where I come from, we make that kind of money. And
Sure,
I know
man.
you
I
can
mean that.
kind of relate to
Yeah,
that as well.
the county I live in, the median income per capita is like $21,000 a year.
Yeah.
I mean, so I've worked in towns that I'm making more in a week than they make easily in a year, and I don't take that lightly. That's not something that I boast about or feel like I'm better than them, because I'm not. We all put our pants on the same way and all that sort of stuff. But it is difficult. It's a struggle, and of what. So I'm very real about with every, you've heard me say it in seminars, and I talk to people all the time. Like when I leave my front door, I'm about making money, but I'm going to do it ethically. I'm going to do it the right way, and I'm going to do it with dignity and honesty. But if that means I'm making 20, 30, $40,000 a week, then that's execution. Then that's what it is, and I'm not going to feel guilty for doing that. But I'm also not going to take it for granted, not expect it the next storm, and not get to this point where I don't leave the house unless I'm making $4,000 a day, because that's not reality. I mean, it seems like it can be, and it is at times, but like you start to get to that level where you forget about the people behind you, and all you're doing is chasing the people in front of you, and you say, well, my buddy's owns a company that's $10 million, and I'm not him, but you never think about your buddy that is lost his job and got an addiction, and going through a terrible divorce. You just look at that like damaged goods. Like it's like, well, he screwed up, man. He didn't have anything figured out. So I think one of the biggest things that I try to tell guys that get into this industry is like, one, remember where you came from, like you said earlier. Like remember what you were prior to getting here, and then also have a plan to get out of this industry. Because Kip, I can promise you, your body's feeling about like mine is. Like I'm going into this season with tennis elbow on my one elbow and my shoulders jacked up. Now,
Yeah.
luckily, it's my right one and I'm left-handed. But like we're not going to be able to do this forever, whether we want to or not. And the money will run out, whether we want it to or not. And all of that is out of our control. Like we have no control over that, So, yeah, you just try to caution people and, yes, live in the moment. Yes, be thankful for what you have, but also be realistic that this faucet could turn off at any time, and then what? So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, having a good run for a couple years and really believing the story, and then having a bad year or just a slow kickoff to a year really is a nice little reality check from life of like, yeah, remember stay humble and remember one of my favorite experiences that I had because of this industry was a friend of mine. He was, I think he was about 14 years older than me, but he was like an older brother. I met him when I was like 19 or something. He owned a tow truck company and had owned a limo company for a while. On top of the world, bought a 40-acre lot and had an old farmhouse on it and closed in the garage and just made bedrooms. And he had like 17 people living with him at one point because he His parents died young. He was on the streets as a 13-year-old and came from nothing and built all that. He's like, he never wanted to see an animal or a human go without a roof over their head and food on a daily basis. And I was living in my car at the time. I was like, say I was like 18 or 19. And the gas station clerk called him up. I was like, I got somebody could use your hand. And he came down. I'm sleeping in the car, and he put it on a rollback. And I wake up thinking I'm getting repoed because he found me. And he he's like, hey, man, I'm Damien. And he's like, Donna called me, and he's like, why don't you come stay with me tonight? And it's like, it's kind of weird, dude. But I'd heard of him. And we ended up just talking and kind of went to dinner like Waffle House or something and just chatted. And stayed at his place like maybe three different times in my life during that like uh period. And kind of stayed in contact over the years here and there. But I always remembered it. And it was when he got sick with cancer, everybody bailed on him and robbed him blind. And when I came back around, it was actually 2011. I had been working. We had such a hailstorm here that I was working nonstop, and I was like
Mhm.
staying at home and driving out to some accounts I had, accounts friends had, and just trying to capitalize on everything I could, running myself ragged. But I happened to run into him just out of the blue, and he had lost like 140 pounds. Could tell, like, man, he's getting close. In the last year and a half of his life, I was able to pay every bill for him. And, he tried to reject it because he's like, I'll be able to pay you back. Give a crap about that. It's like, I was like, I knew it was always there if I need it. And I luckily never did. I was always able to figure it out. But because I knew I had, like, that's part of what helped me figure it out. But to this day, that's one of my favorite things I've ever done. Just in life in general, really, but especially something with reaching any kind of level of success in this business was, man, that took a little bit of worry off somebody's plate of stuff they shouldn't have to be worrying about with that kind of stuff going on in their life. And it's such a cool feeling and like you say, just keep yourself in check of like, man, there's plenty of stress and headache in this business. There's really not at the same time. Like I've had my meltdowns on the road, but it's like
Yeah,
when you've seen different things or been through just the rough journey to get started, it's like, and if you keep a reminder of that in the back of your head, no matter what you run into on the road, it's gonna be all right. Like you can, as long as you're on the road and you're working, it's peaceful. Yeah.
it is, man. I mean, this industry is pretty easy, really. It's kind of incredible to me how many guys screw it up so bad with the talent. Like the talent is the hardest thing to get, but it seems like the guys once they get the talent have the hardest time just figuring it out. Maybe because they take the talent for granted or whatever. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I grew up on a 2,000 head hog farm. Like that was hard work. Um, you know, Pushing dents is not hard work. And maybe I just feel that way because it's not to me, and maybe it is to some other people. But it's a pretty low lifting job as far as that aspect goes. I mean, still today, I mean, when I go to work on the road, I work 100-hour weeks, and I love it. Because I like to work. I like I said, execute, but I also like to get home. So my typical season is 20 weeks long. It may go a little bit longer, may go quite a bit shorter. I think this year I've got about a 12 or 14 week year lined up just because of stuff that I have planned that are non-negotiable. And my season probably starts about 30 minutes after we get off this Zoom call, and I'm hoping to wrap it up. I'm going to wrap it up by July 25th. That's my stop date this year. So, yeah, it's just there's a bunch of different ways to navigate this industry, a bunch of different ways to make money, and you can make a lot of money, you can make a little money. Guys ask me all the time. We always ask, "How was your year?" Dude, every year's good for me. Like whatever, it's hail. Like if you worked 10 weeks this year, which I like to think most guys that are pushing hail, and I'm speaking from a hail standpoint because that's what I do now. If you work 10 weeks, man, you're definitely top 10% of earners in the United States of America.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember Paul Coleman and I were once talking, where we were, but we went to dinner. We ran into each other on the road somewhere. And I think it was Florida. And he, we were just talking about the idea. It's like, man, if you came into this right, there's almost no one that couldn't, if they did the things right and just wanted to retire from this and go on and try something else, like you could pull it off in 5 years. If you didn't have a family, like came into it, like the younger guys coming in, and it's like, really actually could, or at least, and what does retirement look like to you? It was like not stopping, but it's like, if you just went after it focused and did your budgeting right, we lost him.